We are live.
Welcome to your awakening. Please take all as your reality is adjusted.
Good morning, global gulag. Hopefully you can hear me all right. My voice is already gravelly enough. I'll just have to push more air to get past the graveliness, if that makes sense. And I don't know how much of that intro actually came through on YouTube. I was waiting extra long for the YouTube feed to kick off. It looks like it's going all right now. Hopefully.
I think it worked, Cookie. How did you hear it?
It did, yeah. It could just be my client end lagging behind. It took quite a lot longer than usual for the YouTube feed to kick in. But let us know in the chat if you can't hear us or if it's not going or whatever. I'm sure you know what to do. Hello to everyone in the chat room. Thanks for joining in tonight. I'll have a quick hello as we go down in a minute. But first, just the usual branding, because that's the YouTube thing to do. You got to get your branding in so that people know your podcast by its brand. So yes, welcome once again to another edition of Sol Excalibre on this moon day evening.
And it's a new moon as well. New moon on Monday. It definitely is a new moon today. I know that for a fact.
And we had a solar eclipse over the southern hemisphere, a total solar eclipse. I watched a bit of it earlier this afternoon. It wasn't super fantastic like some of them have been in the past, but it was a very clear, distinct, full total solar eclipse. So that's another another mark towards the building of the energy. It's another step up in a sort of electrical circuit kind of vernacular. We're stepping up the current, the frequency each time these things are building up towards next week. And that steadily developing conjunction of the two major planetary bodies in the solar system, other than the sun itself, of course. Well, yeah, that's why I said planetary bodies, isn't it? So, yeah, hello, welcome back to another, what will be, to a certain degree, a roundup of some of the things that have gone on during the week. That's a lot of what we often do, is sort of, digest what has been happening through the last week. And for myself, I try to look at things with a longer arc. So I look for the footsteps of that longer journey that they're trying to push us all along. See how much propaganda bullshit they're pushing out into the media. We got to do the pretend cry. Yeah, I thought about grabbing just that clip, but I'm sure it's already probably become 1,000,001 memes already. I am, if you haven't noticed, I am referencing the scene of Handicock doing his pretend cry. He's blatantly sociopathic, if not psychopathic, revealing of himself, of his inner nature, with his pretend cry over it was the second recipient of the vaccine in a pedantic fashion that he was primarily affixed on. Talking about that guy that was supposedly called William Shakespeare last week, the second guy to get the injection. And of course, all part of the propaganda parade. I thought of a new terminology the other week while we were on Wednesday when we were chatting. And I think I mentioned about the corpus callosum, that bundle of nerves where it comes into the base of the skull and then it sort of begins the subdivision into the two hemispheres of the brain. Yeah. The corpus callosum is like that base area. It's got really the sort of deep down primary drives of our biological cells before it even gets up into the frontal cortex, the frontal lobes, where you have your higher mind, which is things such as your social etiquette and whether you're a naughty person if you don't wear a mask and things like that, you know. That's the facade of the social etiquette, like Victorian etiquette, you know, that pretend you're posh by holding your little pinky out when you're drinking your cup of tea and shit like that. The real primary drives are down in that corpus callosum, and it just made me consider a play on words, possibly. I'm no good at the art to try and put this kind of thing together in terms of doing like an artistic representation of it, of what I mean. I'm sure some of us older ones remember a movie called Logan's Run, and the scene called The Carousel, where the elderly, and in the storyline, the elderly was anyone who'd reached their 30th birthday, I think, as far as I remember. They go to this little ceremony where they dance around this big sort of flashy red crystal symbol, the carousel, and they float up into the air with a bit of science fiction magic. You know, they go floating off up into the air, and then they go pop, and they're exterminated. And it's a big celebration that they've, you know, given their lives so they're the perfect societal machine that is the city they live in can keep ticking over perfectly. Because, you know, to remain perfect, they've got to cull some of the excess herd. Sorry, I'm trying to type at the same time. And remember spelling. No, I'm not remembering it correctly. I'm terrible. It's only one L. But it made me consider a conceptual. Did that actually post? Yeah, it did. I was thinking the chat weren't working properly then. The corpus callosum. A lot of what we're witnessing is based on the manipulation of people's primary drives, i.e. fear of death, which includes fear of being ostracized from the tribal group or the society you live in, because that can lead to death in a primal drive sense. You know, the fear of being pushed out of the tribe, being pushed out of the nest is a primary drive of survival. You know? So the surface layer is people decorating that fear with pseudo concerns about it being good etiquette. You know, it's just nice etiquette to cover your face if you're out in public because you might be spreading illnesses and germs and blah, blah, blah. And the propaganda machine is quite happily making a play on that whole narrative, you know, like using their psychological manipulations of implying that anyone who doesn't do such things is a horrible, nasty person and just unpleasant, and you don't want them around, ostracized from the tribe. Yeah? But those primary drives, that parade of manipulation that we're witnessing is like the Colosseum, and it just made me think of the carousel going in a little circle. Yeah, and they're trying to keep the public's attention fixated on this Colosseum display of the usual talking heads saying literal lies on mass media and broadcasting direct lies to the public. Like the emperor wearing no clothes, he's parading round and round in that Colosseum, tooting his horn about how big his wang is.
It's like watching a pantomime show, especially with Hancock. When he was pretending to cry, like he comes out to the audience like in a pantomime show, and he's the villain, and he's like, "Oh, I'm so," you know, you've seen that clip. I'm sure people listening have seen that clip of Hancock on one of those shows. Good Morning or whatever.
Sky News, yeah, the one with Piers twat facing. And they're just as bad as each other. He's just as much a massive. Whatever.
And like you say, it's in your face, isn't it? They just don't hide it anymore. It's and they're laughing as they're doing it. It was Gary put an interesting comment because we talked about that last Wednesday of that fake crying and crocodile tears and pretending to care. and William Shakespeare from Stratford upon Avon. It just doesn't seem to...
It's beyond belief, isn't it?
It is. Yeah,
You'd laugh if that was on a TV show and they were trying to make it look all serious, like a serious drama about a medical emergency, and that was the script as it was read out while you were watching it. You'd just be laughing your ass off. You'd be like, well, who wrote this script? This script is ridiculously stupid. What the hell? Is this meant for 5-year-olds? Yes, it is meant for 5-year-olds. Part of the experience that we have been recycling over this year, and I'm saying we as a big general catch-all we, I'm presuming a bit, but whatever, that we have been experiencing this year is a recycling of wartime propaganda that they've used multiple times before.
Yeah.
It is meant to appeal to, it needs to, it has to serve its political ends. It has to appeal to the lowest common denominator. That means it's presented in an infantile fashion so that even the stupidest people in your society can still comprehend the message that the propaganda is meant to convey. I had an interesting conversation with Camille, who runs the channel Please Stop the Ride.
Oh, yeah.
If you haven't checked out her channel, please go and check it out. She keeps an eye on a lot of the sort of the academic circles that study a lot of the technology and the academic questions about these kind of societal moves and narratives and agendas that they're doing. So she provides a fantastic resource for all those people when they say do your own research. She's like, well, go and have a look at her work. She's doing a lot of research, doing exactly that.
Yeah.
When a lot of the naysayers say, oh, they'd never do that. It's go, look, it's in their own documentation. Here's an hour-long lecture of them talking about exactly what I just told you. And you're convinced that they're not doing it. You're an idiot. You're an ignorant idiot. Ignorance is strength. This is something they're really, really relying on with this whole process. But just a quick conversation. We was talking about trying to set up for doing recordings and things like that. So it wasn't like a broadcasting. We were just having a chat in general.
Yeah.
But part of what we was talking about is that use of wartime propaganda and how it is deliberately targeted at the lowest common denominator. It's presented in simplistic fashion so that from the majority of people, they're going to see it and think, oh, is that meant to be for a 5-year-old? Like, are they trying to talk to a 5-year-old? Well, in a way, yes, they are. Because they're trying to keep it as simple as possible so it reaches as many people. But that should also help you pull it apart and see which particular triggers in your own psychology that they're attempting to manipulate. So again, as a simple example, if you look at a lot of wartime propaganda, it's primarily based on that fear of the other, as in because they're other to you, they're a different person to you. They're outside your tribe. They're the people who live the other side of the hill or the other side of the river that you've never had any encounters with. You don't know what they're like and all that kind of fear of the unknown. And in that fear vacuum, they superimpose the worst elements of the nightmares that they've shown to you. So the bestial behavior of people, they'll portray, like this is a classic one from the First World War, they portray the Hun soldier as like a guerrilla figure. He's just bestial, and pretty much always his figure was like bigger than normal humans. He'd be big and muscly and just nasty and beating on people. Simplistic, symbolic language.
Well, in more recent times, it reminds me of when they were tipping, apparently this is all propaganda because it didn't happen, they were tipping babies out of incubators in Kuwait. Remember that, when the Kuwait war was on in the 1990s?
When they wanted to start the first, was it the first or the second?
First
one.
Yeah, that's when all the chemical warfare stuff was coming as well, where they were propagandizing how strong and how fearful I think they were called the Republican Guard or something, they were this like fearful bunch of soldiers who'd been, you know, like the SAS, but you know, and all this, and they portrayed them as this really bad enemy. But yeah, but the propaganda, like you say, they've used the same things again and again and again and again throughout, you know, history, and more recently in those times, if you look, and weapons of mass destruction was another good one they seem to not talk about a lot. That was another one that led us into a huge, you know, conflicts and wars.
Do you notice there is a common thread that joins all those things together? It's the phantom nature of them.
Yeah.
Because in a similar fashion to having any reasoned argument with someone, and when I say argument, I mean it in the philosophical sense, you know, not a shouting match. You're having a back and forth argument, a debate where an issue is resolved steadily by countering each other's arguments, etc. Yeah? They're not doing that. If they did that, they would have no need to present extreme possibilities that have no direct evidence to prove them. So in other words, it's something that you have never seen or experienced in your own life. They're just describing it to you. So like the weapons of mass destruction, they couldn't show us a manifest of the weapons that Saddam owned. They just said, oh, he's got things. Here's an artist's impression of the trucks he's got that are mobile labs and shit. No direct proof, just phantasms, imaginings. And that's classical manipulation of fear.
Yeah. And I think as a watcher then, I used to see and think, well, they got an army that's not very good anyway. It was all over, you know, it was propaganda, and they were easily overrun, and they had a few missiles that they could drive around and fire off. That was about it.
Yeah, Scuds.
Yeah.
Which was something I think he got from the Russians, as far as I remember. But it is that, I know I keep saying classic a lot. The classic kind of, they needed to make him seem as big a threat as possible so that it justified their claim for war.
Yeah.
Yeah. If the general populace of the Western nations, the Allied nations that all joined in on that, if they turned around and said, what are you on about, mate? He's some tin pot dictator in a what was a third world country, according to the Western media propaganda, you know.
Yeah.
But that's the way most people would react. It's like, why have we got to worry about him, mate? He's a nobody. So they had to make him seem like a big threat. And they knew full well, by selling him the chemical weapons in the first place, as well as a lot of other equipment, armaments, etc., they knew he would create enough of a stink, yeah, no pun intended, so that then later on they could come back and go, see, look, he's a naughty man. He's got weapons of mass destruction. It's like, yeah, you sold them to him.
Well, they said that they did it with Gaddafi as well as Hussein. So they did it with the pair of them. They were both in their pocket to a certain degree, you found out later.
Useful tools on the chess game. They were deliberately pushed into a position of being sacrificial pawns. They were made out to look like knights, you know, as in the chess metaphor. You know, they told the public, so, oh, we've got to be careful of him. He's a consummate warrior. You know, he's a knight in the field kind of thing. He's like, no, he's not. He's a tin pot dictator. Yeah. But that manipulation is, again, what they've been using all this year, primarily. Fear of the unknown. You know, I've made this point a few times about how the virus, the supposed pathogen, is the phantom menace, because everyday people can't see any direct proof of it. They've concocted an amalgam of symptoms that you can supposedly present if you've got this alleged illness, but those symptoms could come from a multitude of other possible causes as well. So in effect, they've just made a list that they know a lot of people will have, especially during the flu season. So, oh, you got a cough, yeah. You got sniffles, yeah. You got a bit of a fever and the tremors, and so, yeah. You got sweaty toes, yeah. Yeah, and the list just got sillier and sillier because they were trying to pull in anything that would convince people. Like, oh, I got that thing they said on the news. I got an itchy knee. That means I got the illness. I got an itchy knee. You know, anything that would feed people's need to be able to connect to the fear, because when they've been presented with that fear, they need to actually connect to it. Yeah?
Well, they pumped out more fear today, Cookie, because he said it's now morphed. It's mutating into another COVID-20, maybe.
It's just becoming the mink COVID now.
Yeah.
I think I'm not sure who it was who first mentioned this possibility, but somebody did bring it up when they pumped out that news about the minks all being infected and having to be culled. And somebody did mention that minks can carry, they're supposedly one of the likely zoonotic transmitters for humans. Supposedly illnesses such as coronaviruses can mutate through mink, and then the people pick it up from them. Similar to how they keep saying about pigs. Pigs are one of the most common zoonotic animals that they'll reference and say, oh, pigs get it, and then we get it, just like they did with their other media campaign a few years ago. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Mouth and
yes,
they've tried it multiple times, bird flu and all that.
But this one's on the global scale, isn't it? This is the big event.
I suppose I might as well mention it. I'm sort of more inclined to just talk openly and see what happens in terms of the YouTube. Because at the moment it seems very, very unpredictable, in the sense of they keep putting out this kind of implication that if you mention certain words or ideas that you get censored. But then we've been sort of talking about this stuff for however long, and they seem to be just ignoring us. Maybe it's because we're just little channels, They're not worried about us yet. We're not reaching enough people.
Well, I mean,
worry about
people like Corbett are still on, and they are very, maybe there's just certain ones they, like you said, they'll just stay up. I don't know how it works. It's just confusing. And the threats they put out, like they did the other day, and then when you went to the RT channel, they were doing a live Trump update. They had all the these Republican support type people on there saying, giving you updates on how it's all going in the background, and they're not reporting what's happening. And just seeing something today on that as well. There's still lots going on there apparently.
It's become even more confusing for me.
Every day I just thought, I don't know when this electoral college vote guys call it. I think it's today or tomorrow, or
it's starting now. I think I don't know if it's going to get called today. It might take a day or two for it to go through its process, but I know it's starting today.
But all year they've confused the hell out of everything, haven't they? The media have gone into overdrive, absolute propaganda, like you say, the wartime propaganda kind of campaigns. It reminds us of, in that sense, and you can see that, we're under heavy, attack at the moment, in a psychological way, and it's having effects on people. I mean, people have rushed out and got that, that so-called vaccine we talked about last week, and then they were saying, don't get it if you've got allergies. So, wow. I mean, I've got a few allergies, so I'm not having it then. I wasn't having it anyway. But when they come out with things like that after after all the other propaganda, then they say, oh, well, actually, we've had all this reaction, and people with allergies shouldn't take it.
That's right. I thought
it's a bit late now, when it was about 10,000 people have all, rolled up to have it,
Well, in the subtitle this week, so I've been rambling on and not really, like I classically do, it's classic again, like I classically do, I haven't even sort of begun the intro before, we're already half hour into the conversation. No, it's not you, man. It's me. I keep saying, I'm going to mention the intro, and then by the time I remember it, it's already like 8:30. But in the subtitle this week, I put it in speech marks because it's meant to be like somebody saying it to somebody else. But it says, roll up your sleeve to receive your sacrament. And this is something, we've mentioned a few times as the months have been going on, about how a lot of this comes across very much like a religion, as in they're asking the public to just believe in something. And as it's progressed, like a lot of us have been talking about for so long, as it progressed and the net has got tighter and tighter and tighter, it's become more obvious to more people that, hang on a minute, how can this have anything to actually do with a virus or people being ill? This is way beyond that now, what you're asking of us and what you're trying to change. So you get to a choice point for people where they either just believe or they've got too many questions such that they end up being labelled as a bad person, an anti-vaxxer, a denier, or whatever by the system. So the system is sort of building a little metaphorical church, and the people who believe what the state is saying to them, like Handicock, laugh crying, and do you believe that? If you do, step into the church, roll up your sleeve to receive your sacrament. Because you do have to get to the state of a mindset of belief, pure belief, because none of the evidence holds up. No. If anything, the majority of the evidence points in the opposite direction. It is pure lies, propaganda and lies. And propaganda mostly is a lot of lies, but it doesn't need to be lies. They can use the truth as propaganda. It's dependent how it's framed and presented and blah, blah, blah. The truth can be twisted to make you think that they're telling you something truthful, but they're using it still to manipulate you.
Yeah. So
that could bring me to mention that other element, where have I put it? I was trying to think of a way of helping people comprehend how the propaganda meme that the state system has been promoting so much, certainly over this year. They've been promoting it for years, but this year it's become sacrosanct. It is like one of the incantations that they're chanting behind the altar as they're offering this new sacrament in their new church of the Covidians. But this dogma that they've been trying to get people to repeat, because that's what a dogma is, don't question it, just repeat it like a parrot, is science is real. Now, we might have talked about this a few times in the past. I know I've sort of pulled it apart before because it's logically inconsistent. It's not a good argument in and of itself. The statement self-defeats. It doesn't do what you would expect of a good statement. Science is real. It's the same as saying, well, water is wet. What do you mean science is real? Of course, the methods used of science, you're saying like a guy in a lab, using his instruments and doing his measurements and stuff. Yeah, that's real. That's somebody doing science, and that's a real thing in reality. So what is it you're trying to say by saying science is real? You're actually saying, you're attempting to twist, again, like I said, propaganda can be truth twisted. You're attempting to twist and invert the meaning in people's thinking, because what you're asking of them is a belief. You're asking them to just believe whoever it is that is stating the science. So they have whatever expert with the white coat on saying, oh, the science says, and you just have to believe because science is real. So by making that statement, do you see what I mean? It is a complete inversion. You're trying to get people to repeat a dogmatic statement that is actually contradictory to their intention of meaning. They intend to mean that we like using science because it produces repeatable facts that we can rely on, that we can build the world based on, because, the science of bricks on top of each other makes a house and shit. That's science. That's real science, They want that intention of meaning to be twisted into a statement of belief. Science is real. It's like saying, I believe in the COVID.
These are real vaccines. Yeah.
You're in the church of COVID now. You're in the church of scientism, as people have referred to it for years now, So I was trying to think of, well, how do I convey that concept to somebody who maybe is sort of stuck in that idea of like, well, yeah, of course science is real, mate. You're crazy tinfoil hatter because you question the science that they're showing us and whatever. You question when they say consensus science. Of course, all the scientists agree. So, do they? No, they don't. But one thing I thought of, I'll put it in the chat. Hopefully, this will sort of make sense to people. in why I'm doing it this way. I never thought to put it as a banner to show on the screen. We'll do that in 2 seconds while I'm talking about it. The phrase I come up with to try and sort of point across to people is cooking is real. Now, I know that might sound really simplistic, but if you think about the intention of the meaning of the sentence, the statement within that, made by that sentence, what do you think that's conveying to you as the reader, as the receiver of that? Well, yeah, cooking is real, of course it is, but cooking isn't something that guarantees a certain result, is it? There's elements of cooking that are objective. As in, if you boil an egg for a certain length of time, you're going to end up with a hard-boiled egg. Yeah, simple principles of chemistry involved in cooking. Yeah, repeatable. You can rely on them. They're factual bits of reality that you can do again and again and again based on circumstances and variables. You know, boiling an egg at the top of Mount Everest will take a hell of a lot longer than doing it in your kitchen. Yeah, but cooking is real. Yeah, there's a lot of objective reality about the process of cooking, but it's also immensely subjective. What do you find flavoursome? What counts as cooking? I've eaten things that people have claimed, oh yeah, I'm good at cooking, mate. I'll cook something for you, and then you're eating it. You're like, oh, is this really cooking? Is this what you call cooking?
Well, like a packet of crisps. Yeah.
Is that cooking? Is that food? I'm not, yeah, some of the synthetic food and whatever. I mean, they're all elements of the connotation of what I'm referencing in that statement. You know, what I'm hoping is that the connotations that will be pulled up in people's thinking will be those kind of observations of like, well, yeah, cooking's somewhat reliable if you know what you're doing and you've got the equipment and the resources and whatever, yeah? But it's also immensely subjective because you could have all the best equipment, all the best ingredients, but as somebody who knows nothing about cooking, you can't expect them to produce a good result. You know, that you can't ask them to produce a beef Wellington. What you're going to end up with, it could be anything, yeah? Mush and pastry on a plate, but hopefully you get the point. Yeah, I've been trying to task my brain more to, in a way, it's like psychic jiu-jitsu. And I know we talked about this kind of thing a lot over the years. Yeah, they are primarily reliant on using psychology that is offensive. If you carry on with that metaphor of the to and fro between their propaganda and your own thinking is like a martial arts match, yeah. And you think in terms of moves and kata and dodging and stances and all this kind of stuff, use that metaphor. They're throwing a blow in your direction. Every day you look at their media, I was going to say news media, but it's not just on the news, it's everywhere in the media. You look at their news media and they're throwing a blow in your direction. That propaganda is them throwing a psychological blow in your direction. What do you do with that? Do you just take it on the chin? That's the kind of effect that they want, because that puts you into a shock state of thinking, which is why they rely on so much shock theatre, as in, look at the death numbers. Here's some images of the stressed out nurses in the overfilled ICU ward, and look at how terrible all the people look. It's all emotive manipulation. Yeah, they're punching you in such a way that they're hoping that you'll end up in shock, in a learned helplessness response, which means you'll more likely just follow orders, you follow directives. This is an unfortunate reality of human psychology. In a disaster situation, most people become much more obedient. It's a simple way to put it. And it's not a bad thing necessarily, because if you're in a disaster, you need to survive, yeah? And that's what your mind does. It focuses. And so many survivors will tell you how their thinking just narrowed to almost like a tunnel. And all they focused on was how to get out, how to escape, how to survive. That's what they're exploiting. When they push you into that frame of mind of you are presented with a deadly threat that you can't put your hands on because it's a phantasm. Yeah, it's a cloud. You can't grip it. You can't punch it. You can't dodge its blow because it's coming at you from all directions. Your mind goes into that state of shut down, concentrate on survival. What is survival? Well, the authorities that have been indoctrinated into my life say, go that way to get on the life raft. So you go that way. Very few people stop and go, hang on, is this actually a real monster that's threatening me? Or is it just the illusion that you're casting?
I think people are seeing that now, though, more. Just seeing it.
Yeah. So hopefully that makes sense about cooking is real. I know, like I do, sort of extrapolated beyond the point. But the other thing that has been bouncing around in my head since last week, so I thought I'd come back to this and point this out because, and again, I know this can sound somewhat like you're concentrating on the negative. Oh, it's the negative. It's like there is no balance to life without acknowledging the negative as well. Doesn't mean you want to have it around. Doesn't mean it's the dominant. Doesn't mean any of that shit. But the negative is part of reality as well, and you can't address reality unless you acknowledge that the negative is there as well. But the point I was mainly going to make is like, this is a quote from Arthur Schopenhauer, and he was a very, very interesting guy. If you've never looked at his stuff, go and have a research on him. But he makes this statement: truth passes through 3 stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. Third, it is accepted as self-evident. End quote. I didn't do the start quote though, but yeah, you get the point. I'm going to screen share an image from a video that was put up today. I'll also I'll share the link in the chat for this video. I've just grabbed it from a channel called Based Welshman. He's been covering a lot of the gatherings and protests around the country, and he's done a re-upload of this, but he's put the link in his info box so you can follow it through for yourself if you want to pursue the provenance and the chain of information. And screen share while I'm yabbering. That one, please. Thank you. But this is just an example from recently. As I say, I'm not going to play the video. If you want to look at it, go and have a look at it for yourself. This is after, I think, the main gathering in Nottingham recently over the last weekend. Other people have put up videos about the gathering and the rally in Nottingham. There were some speakers there. Piers Corbyn was there again. He gets around, that guy. He was there again doing his little let's chant slogans thing, because he's old school Labour, so they've always got to get the crowd chanting slogans. It's somewhat Delphi technique, but it's old school Labour. But the main point I wanted to make, from what I can gather watching the various videos covering the event, this situation took place after the main rally and after the people had been on a little march around the town, doing like a protest march. I think some people were gathering outside the Nottingham Town Hall or the council house. I'm not sure what the building is, but there's a little crowd of people and there's a handful of coppers in a line blocking the doorway. Like, obviously, they thought the protesters were going to try and storm the building or something, or whatever, whatever excuse they come up with. But this incident happens on that police line, and that guy got his head bust open. He's bleeding quite profusely, obviously connected with one of the veins on his scalp. I don't think his skull was cracked, but they certainly popped the vein on his scalp. It was outside the council house, Kendo says in the chat. Thanks, Kendo. I thought it might be something like that. And this, to me, it makes the point of what Schopenhauer's saying in that second part. so far for most of this year, for the majority of people in the different countries around the world, most of what we've had to deal with is the first point. First, it's ridiculed. And when I say the truth, I'm not trying to reference anything like there is a singular truth that says the virus is real or isn't real. There is a singular truth that says the numbers of deaths is such and such and such and such. The point is the truth that there are people who disagree with the state narrative, with the official script. Now, supposedly, in our societies, in our alleged civilization, disagreement is part of the process. It's not excluded. The whole reason there's two sides of the parliamentary floor is they're meant to be opposing each other. So like what I talked about earlier with the philosophical argument, they're supposed to go back and forth to resolve an issue. So therefore you need the opposition, but this is the level they've got to with people who don't believe and just accept and join in that Covidian church, the belief system. If you disagree, they have come past now the point of they will just point at you and ridicule you. Gandhi worded it in a similar fashion. First they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. It's the Gandhi version of this same thing. But they will resort to physical violence, and we're seeing similar in the recent London gatherings and in other places, and of course in other places around the world it's a hell of a lot worse. And the situation in France has been steadily getting worse, and their situation is not just to do with the whole COVID bullshit or anything like that. There's more to it, but it's all part of the same agenda in the long run.
Freedom.
Yeah. And that's part of the point I'm trying to make when I'm saying about the question of the truth. To me, it's not so much whether that guy in the picture had the truth and the policeman just didn't like it, so he bashed him on the head. No, it's that process of if you're resorting to violence, like, you've already lost the argument. Exactly. And whether that guy was correct or not, whether he had the truth or not, no, you've lost the argument because you just resorted to violence. If we're going to do that, then we're already in a physical war. And that's the kind of level they're stepping into. The second point is violently opposed. Just after that scene there, like, some people try to help him and they start trying to stem the wound and whatever, and they move over the other side of the road. And then not long after that, a few minutes after that, lo and behold, a few vans full of other coppers turn up. I'll see if I can find just a little still of the one bit so you can see the kind of scale of police presence and how disproportionate it is. I mean, that's just half of them. There was twice that many that piled out of the two vans, and they form a little cordon around the guy and the other people that are helping the guy, trying to stop his bleeding and whatever. And they push everybody else out the way and start making stupid statements about, oh, we'll care for him, we'll care for him. And as people point out to me, it's like, you're not ambulance, you're not medical health work. How are you going to help him any better than the rest of the public? But this is the stage that they're stepping into now, where it's overt, direct show of force. It's either physical in the sense of they will cause physical damage to people, or it's overt in the sense of the sheer numbers of them that will turn up to deal with one guy.
Yeah, and we saw that in London, didn't we? With London protests.
In a similar fashion, they were so over the top deliberately because it's meant to intimidate people. That's what it's about, creating that air of intimidation. What do you mean you don't believe in the church? You either believe in the church or we'll send our thug squad to beat you until you believe. And
the abuse of the power now, they've got these new laws or rules or whatever.
How is that? How is that science is real? They keep saying science is real, boom, 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 with a truncheon. It's like, what? Are you telling me that the science of your truncheon hitting my cranium is real? Yeah, that's real, mate. Look at the blood that results. That's the reality. So yeah, it always as well brings me back. It's why I pulled it up however long ago, over many months ago. The Voltaire quote. You know, those who can make you believe in absurdities can make you commit atrocities. Because that is what they're playing with. That is the knife edge that they're forcing people to dance along. Do you believe in a thing, a vaccine? I'll just say it, get on with it. Do you believe the science is real as they tell you, that this vaccine, when studied, gives a 0.8% improvement to your immune resistance to this alleged virus? You know, that, and thanks to the guys at UK Column for doing all those calculations. You know, the actual statistical increase in your resistance to the alleged virus is 0.8%. That's the beneficial effect of the vaccine. Yeah, a 0.8% improvement to something that you already have 99+% resistance to and likelihood to survive, but they want you to accept that as a logical reality. That's an absurdity. Yeah, insisting that everybody has an injection, because you know it's not mandated yet, but you know they're relying on the psychology, etc., etc. Insisting that people be vaccinated against something that has a 99+% likelihood of survival, or just total, you know, immunity to it. And even if you have the vaccine, it's likely that it's 0.8% going to improve your chances of resisting the illness. How is that anything other than an absurdity?
And coming up with a decent test, if there is one available, because there isn't one at the moment.
Yeah, I do think that, you know, that element of the I'm trying to remember the terminology, the austerity. You know, like similar in a religious grouping or in a cult or whatever, an acolyte or somebody who wants to join is expected to go through some form of austerity or austerity. Now that could be financial, or in a life sense, as in people are expected to give up their old life, you know, to walk away from their old life, like they do with Scientology and things like that, you know? Or the Mormons. You know, you're supposed to walk away from your old life and change. You know, like the butterfly. You just now I'm a so and so. You know, now I'm a member of this cult.
Yeah, don't deal with any of your own shadows or anything like that, though. Just keep. Yeah, I know. Sorry.
Or doing that process of some kind of physical austerity. You know, so in a lot of cults, they have to do something physical, walking over hot coals and shit like that. You know, do something that causes you at least being uncomfortable, if not outright direct pain or injury. You know, and you think of some of the different cults around the world, like some of the Hindu ones, you know, where they'll puncture their own skin and stuff. I can't remember the name of it. The one ceremony where they put hooks and stuff through their cheeks.
Seen it, yeah. It's pretty gross.
That's an austerity. You know, you've got to pay that austerity price. It's a blood magic connection, a blood magic ritual. You have to pay a price to be allowed entrance into the sacred space. In the same way now, they're subtly letting you know that if you don't join in with their belief system, you will not be allowed into that sacred bubble of the new society that they're trying to build, which is, or want to implement.
Dark and has satanic overtones, and you know that thing about, you know, putting, you know, you mentioned the Indian guys putting those spikes through themselves and stuff. I mean, and they do other stuff. You know, African tribes will do all kinds of mutilations and stuff on themselves. That's you know, where's that come from? You know, that's something that's very dark to me, that people will want to do that to themselves. And I think, you know, it's amazing how powerful the mind is, and how it, you know, will still do these things, still not in larger numbers and small numbers, though, but it still goes on.
let me just make another point about this. Thanks to Tony for putting this graphic together as well. It lays it out a bit better. I tried to change the formatting in the StreamYard thing, but it wouldn't let me do it so that I could lay it out like this, because it just helps explaining a bit better when it's in that kind of bullet point fashion of one line, then the next one, then the next one, then the next one. Yeah. But he's also describing a process that could be called the ego death. Because what he's referencing, again, this goes back to those primary base drives of your survival, you living in this reality. Yeah? The ego is convinced that it lives forever. The ego is the main driver of your survival instinct. So it's the main rider, I should more describe it as. You know, your survival instincts will want to survive. Your ego latches itself to them and defends them in the same way as if it's its own life dependent on it. That's why people often refer to that concept of ego death. Yeah, and just to caveat myself, I'm not suggesting that we need to eradicate the ego and all that kind of stuff.
You need your ego to get up in the morning and dress yourself and do all those things. That's what the ego's like in balance for. But it's
a major part of your basic operating system, to use a computer software metaphor. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of what he's saying with that description, you know, he's referring to truth and how it affects the way people interact with it, the way societies interact with it, etc., etc. You know, he's pointing out a reality, observational reality that, this is generally what happens, unfortunately, in the world we live in.
Mm.
You know, this is the process that we inevitably always go through again and again and again.
Mm.
But it could also be applied to that ego death. You know, people think, or people thought, if you ask them in summer of 2019, that do you think that at the end of 2020 you would have lost most of the world that you're now currently living in? You know, if you were asking somebody in 2019, you know, this world where you can go about your day, go shopping, go in a pub, go meet your mates, hang out in the park, have a dance, have a hug, you know, all that life that you currently live in. Do you think at the end of 2020, most of that will just be gone? And they'll be like, ha ha, you're crazy, not a ridicule. Yeah, the ego would go, oh, that'll never happen. Nah, that's stupid. That's crazy silliness, mate. The ego death. But then as the process begins, that process that would normally lead to second it's violently opposed, the majority of people are not violently opposing their own ego death. They're too scared to, because they've been told that they will die if they don't do what's being told to them. You know, so there's that's the system twisting the reality to make people think that you're under threat of death when you're not. You know, if you don't do what we're telling you, the nasty virus will come out after 10 p.m. and get you. I'll show this other image as well, just to sort of make that point. Yeah, that was the breaking news recently, wasn't it?
Yeah.
New variant is going to come and get you. The new is the 2.0 version of the virus. Yeah? Virus, the Revenge, Part 2. This time he's pissed off. Yeah?
Roll up your sleeve.
It's like cheesy 1980s action movie kind of stuff, you know. We are supposedly, and I've heard this mentioned once or twice in the general media, and I think maybe they're not going to carry on mentioning it because it does sort of defy a lot of the reality of history as it's been observed. Basically, they're talking about a third wave or a third spike. And it's like, viruses don't do that. Viral outbreaks do not do that. Throughout history, when they've been observed, viral outbreaks have one spike, as they're referring it, which is usually when it first goes out there, you know, because it's got a load of fresh meat, basically. Nobody's ever encountered this virus or this version of the virus, so a lot more people are susceptible to it, so you end up with that spike of when it first emerges. But then once it's spread And once most people have developed an immunity, that herd immunity, then you might get a little blip later on when it sort of consumes other people that it hadn't been encountering. The extra people that had been somewhere else when the virus came out to play that first time. That usually happens. You usually get a spike, and then later on you'll get a little sort of secondary wave that's not really a spike, it's just a bit of a hump. We've already been through that. That happened here in the UK in the summer. If you even believe that it's a new separate thing, and I say belief deliberately, I'm more inclined to stick to what I said months ago, that what they're doing is just relabeling flu.
Yeah.
The usual coronavirus, this year's version of the coronavirus, because it mutates each season, they've just relabeled it as this new classification.
So we just have third, fourth, fifth, and sixth waves coming at us, and they're still laughing and laughing and laughing.
Yeah, doing a bit of cry,
laughing at us because we think it's real, and we've just been, we spent, well, up until this year, just dealing with, like you say, that scenario anyway. I mean, it was only a few years ago they had 60,000 people. Was it die of the flu that year?
Yeah,
old people, people who just had underlying health conditions and things. That's when you look back through history, that's how we we seem to just have this issue with it, and we just that's how we go. We're going to live forever. I mean, 91. I mean, there's all these people they're throwing at you in the 80s and 90s, and
better get your vaccine, otherwise you might die.
It's like your great granddad. It's like, I mean, how long do you, I mean, you go through your life and you think, well, but they're trying to get that into people's minds that nobody should die. Is it nobody? Save lives, save lives. How old are you? 106. Save lives. It's just mental. I mean, where do they go with it? And they're just laughing their tits off every step of the way. It seems at us. The media is pumping out the lie and the lie and the lie and continue doing it. Yeah.
It is a steady process, a gradualism process. That is a stepping stone. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think we've talked about this before, the kind of principle of the war on death.
Yes.
In effect, what they're steadily doing to most, I say they're doing to most people, a lot of this is media perception. A lot of the people I talk to aren't really falling for all the bullshit. They may have, been tricked over by some of it, but they're not swallowing the whole brown pill. Don't take the brown pill, folks. But that steady process of them convincing people that human biology is no longer capable, that all of a sudden, for some reason, in this new, what are they calling it, the Anthropocene, this new age of humans, this new era, geological era called Anthropocene, that all of a sudden our immune system, our biological systems are no longer capable of doing what they have been doing for the last 200,000+ years. Now we need help from their technologies. But it's that idea, that concept makes people think that their own body is not capable of doing what it does. Part of what it does is die. That's an unfortunate reality for all of us, folks. Eventually, all the stuff goes back in the box on the shelf, yeah? Or as Frank Zappa said it, no one gets out of here alive. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
That is a little subtle tip, the tip of the spear into people's thinking to begin the process that the technology will be able to prevent you from dying in one form or another, whether that's you get augmented in some fashion, or you get injections that keep you alive, or you get downloaded into a cloud-based system. However they do it, they're inserting that idea that, don't worry, we can beat death. Look, we can even inject a 91-year-old with this vaccine that's going to help him resist death, even though he's 91 years old. Again, absurdities.
Yeah.
They're convincing people of absurdities. And it is that idea, that concept, that very base concept that, oh, don't worry, the technology can save you from death. We're having a war on death. That's a steady gradualism process towards transhumanism.
Yeah. And
that transhumanism is a major part of the whole technocratic change that they're trying to force onto people.
And the eugenics.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all, that's
well,
playing out very nicely for them at the moment.
That's a good opportunity to mention something that I've rattled on about quite a few times over the last year plus, and that was, what was the primary narrative of the whole movie script arc, including the however many there is, 10, 11, 12 different movies, whatever. I wonder if there is 12, or is there 13? Is there a 13th tribe? There might be, the 13 in there, yeah. The Avengers, Marvel superheroes thing narrative, yeah, with the major 2 films at least, isn't it? It's the war and then the something, I can't remember the titles, I'm sorry, but the major narrative was that there was this big super evil guy called Thanos, and he thought that the best way to deal with all the problems of reality was just get rid of half of the population. This is a basic eugenics principle that they had introduced into cultural media, or via cultural media, into the general populace. Now, I mentioned it, I think, last week, about how the topic of eugenics has become another talking point again recently within the last few weeks. I think because people connecting it to the virus, the vaccine, and obviously the state system was trying to attach, project that label onto questioners, people who question or disagree with their narrative. This is commonly what they do. They project a most extreme and ridiculous version of a concept onto everyone. So it's like, as soon as you ask any question, all of a sudden you're an anti-vaxxer, neo-Nazi, tinfoil hat wearing, believing the Queen is a lizard and the earth is flat, and every other most extreme, ridiculous version of a concept all gets put on top of you straight away. You know, that process, what was I talking about? I brain farted then because I was fixated on coming up with a list of all the silliness.
So did I.
See, that's what that silliness does.
Yeah,
it's just deliberately meant to trip people over and make them think the whole thing is so ridiculous that they should just walk away and stop thinking about it. That's what I was after.
Yeah,
the concept of eugenics in the public consciousness and getting people talking about the very principle.
Yeah.
Recently, because of the possible connection to vaccines, of course, a fairly old conspiracy thread is that there is stuff in the vaccines. That brings up questions of, well, what exactly is in the vaccine? And of course, you get, because it's a process of deductive reasoning. Yeah, a lot of people forget that conspiracy theorizing is exactly what detectives do.
It comes from facts, basically. It comes from what you find.
Yeah, they love the useful idiots in the public who, when the state system goes, that guy over there is a conspiracy theorist, they're crazy, aren't they? And all the useful idiots go, yeah, let's get him. Yeah, that's the lack of thinking. But the point is, they want to ridicule anyone who comes up with any questions at all, even if they're going through a process where they're trying to apply deductive reasoning of like, well, hang on, what could be in the vaccine? There could be this, you know, all these possibilities of what they could be doing with it. What are the likely possible realities? Okay, so go through a process of elimination. Are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? Yeah, etc., etc. There's that concept of the potential for there to be either sterility or outright, you know, the equivalent of a euthanasia injection, something to outright kill people, even if it's a somewhat slow kill. You know, like a lot of people have been talking about the flu vaccine for years and questioning whether, is there a connection with the sheer number of flu cases that lead to death and the application of the flu vaccine? Are we seeing more deaths from influenza in modern society since the rollout of the flu vaccine? Things like that, you know, it's kind of statistical investigations that you're not allowed to do. But that idea of, could there be something in it? Yeah, and the potential connection to, well, if you're talking about sterility or euthanasia, then you're talking about eugenics. So it's brought up the question of eugenics again. And as I say, I've mentioned this a lot over the last year. Why did we have what added up to several years worth of this build-up of the whole Marvel movie cosmos that culminated in these films where it's about the evil bad guy trying to wipe out half the population? And one of the main sort of script memes, the phrases out of the movies, like, well, you know, we've got to eradicate half of the population so that the rest who are left have a good life. It's as if, right, they're saying to you, there's not enough biscuits on the plate for all of you, so I'll have my 11 and you can argue over who gets the 12th, the last one. Okay, you know, that's that classic monopolistic eugenics mindset. There ain't enough for everyone, so the rest of you who weren't successful in monopolizing the resources of sustenance, tough for you, you all starve to death. I'm extrapolating a bit, but to get back to that main point of why do they want people to get stuck? Well, that's a good, yeah. I think we've already answered that, mate. They're just greedy fuckers.
Yeah.
But why do they want to get people talking about that kind of subject? It's so that like whack-a-mole, they're drawing the people out that are not part of that believer group that just joins in the church of the Covidians without question. Yeah, a lot of what they want to do is going to rely on people just obeying orders. Ignorance is strength. You don't need to know. You're a peon. Just do as you're told. Just take the pill, take the injection, roll up your sleeve for your sacrament. This is something they're heavily relying on. A lot of what they want to do won't happen at all unless the people themselves implement it or allow it to be implemented. You know, really, that comes back to near enough everything in our lives, you know, in society, certainly. Things don't happen unless the mass of the populace allow it to and do it themselves. And that's, to me, the most dangerous and insidious element about this whole process. They are relying on the kind of people whose mindset, whose mentality can be manipulated in such a way that, again, referencing the Voltaire quote, they will carry out atrocities because they believe in absurdities. They believe that an illness that humanity, mankind, has been surviving and outliving year after year in perpetuity back throughout all recorded history. There have been coronaviruses and we've survived. We're still here now.
Yeah.
If anything, there's more of us here now than there were, you know, supposedly according to their historical track record. Yeah. So why is it now all of a sudden humanity is no longer capable of doing that? And it's a tragedy that has to be dealt with because a few thousand people died this year. Whereas, yeah, last year a few thousand people died as well, but nobody was saying that they were worried about shit back last year, were they? So,
and every government across the world says the same thing.
Yeah,
pretty much.
And that then nicely sort of connects us into the agenda. Thanks to Tony again for this one. You need to come with us for the COVID vaccine, but the facts prove the vaccine is not viable. The facts prove the vaccine is not viable. That's right. You are free to go. Move along. This, again, it's that belief system kind of thing. Do you just believe science is real? So actually, I more believe in cooking is real. Your statement of science is real doesn't really make any logical sense. It's contradictory. It's self-contradictory. Yeah, but how do you convey that to the mass of the population in such a way that it reaches as many people as possible? You know, they are relying on reaching the lowest common denominator. I think we have to do somewhat similar, or we certainly have to at least leave that door open. Maybe the sign you have outside your little shop, using metaphorical references again, yeah? The little sign you have outside your shop is something nice and simple, so it catches plenty of people's attention. Doesn't need to have the whole big shebang all included in one printed handout, you know. I was thinking about the concept of the truth bukkake. I don't know if you remember that. I come up with that years ago. Yeah, and it is that unfortunate process that we all go through when you first start doing the classic waking up, which basically just means you actually start paying a bit more attention. You start using your awareness to take a bit more notice of your surroundings, which includes the big global picture. You know, you're not living in a vacuum. When you start that process, you get this sort of download of information, because there's plenty of information out there when you start bothering to put in the energy to pay attention to what's going on.
Well, it'll come at you as well if you've got the right intention to find out in the right way, not to just be a silly, you know, I don't know, or whatever, or fall down rabbit holes or minefields.
Ignorance is strength. Yeah, when you decide to pull the blinkers back and lift your head up and start looking around you, rather than going, oh, I better not look up. I better just stay in my track, stay in my lane. Don't want to attract attention to myself. And it's not like you need to be Gandhi dancing on the parapet on the walls. You know, that's not the point. But they want you to be stuck in a little narrow view of your reality that is dictated to you by the media that you consume. They give you this tunnel reality to live in. When you bother to lift your head up and start looking around, you realise there's all this other shit going on. Yeah, so I was just trying to make the point, really, of if you keep the sort of intro somewhat simple and easy to digest, then you can have more opportunity to encounter people who actually want to find out for themselves. They want to know more. They want to dig deeper. They don't want just the simple magic pill, bite-sized version, you know, minced up words to easy to swallow. No, they want the deep, dark truth. They want all of it.
People have realised, because back in the day they did only want snips and bobs. Now they realise there's more to this, and
they wanted the happy pill. They thought the truth would bring them happiness because it would clarify things in some fashion. But often it's the opposite. You find out a truth, and all of a sudden it opens up a whole new can of worms, a whole new borough of rabbit warren. You know, all of a sudden there's all these other tunnels to go down.
Beware of some little traps, and if it doesn't feel right, it doesn't resonate, and it's like, nah, then maybe it's, I think that's how you go for it, and you verify things as well, and you go with your own, whatever your experiences as well, you know, how you see the world and all that.
Yep. Just be aware to not do the truth bukkake on people. I know I'm not suggesting you tell that to people. You know,
I've known people in the past to be like that sometimes in the 10 odd years I've been sort of.
I've done it as well, multiple times.
We've all done it, haven't we?
I know there's some people that argue I still do it now. You know, it's like, Cookie, you've been talking for an hour and we're talking about all this different stuff, and you're bringing in this subject and that subject, and it's like, well, that's you.
Are you listening?
I can cope with all this stuff. You know, you're just letting me know that your muscles are aching. You know, if using that kind of, you're in a gym metaphor, you're in the dojo, you're training in the dojo. So I've done enough training for today. And you do have to be self-aware of that kind of thing, to take breaks from stuff, to go and do something else completely different instead for a while.
Definitely.
And like we've been talking about recently, and I know Jackie, Jam Noise, hello in the chat, I've just seen your name scroll past. Like Jackie's been pointing out, go and do something creative, go and do something crafty, as in, you know, making things with your hands, do something crafting, do some cooking. Cooking is real. Real cooking, not pink cuisine, not stab it and stick it in the microwave cuisine. No, do some actual cooking. Do some baking. That's about the main cooking I do anymore, is baking. But doing stuff like that, just to have a break from all this, because an element of what they do and how they do it and why they do it is to oversaturate you, to overstimulate you, to confuse you by making it seem like there's just so much going on, there's so much info, there's so many different directions, that you just give up and you become apathetic because it seems unassailable. That's, man, I wish I had the image of it because I can think of it in my head. But
we're going through big energy shifts. I know that definitely. It's affecting quite a few people. And lack of sleep or weird dreams. Dreams are poor. Yeah.
Yeah, there's been a lot more of them recently.
Strange
people reporting odd dreams and repetitious dreams.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just reading that. Sorry.
Like Starship Troopers. This citizen questioned the government narrative on COVID-19. Would you like to know more? I haven't got quite the deep enough voice like he does it on the movie. I'd need to do some mixing.
The Muppet Show one that's coming up in a bit. That's
the next one along. Yeah,
or one after the Share one, I think, or whatever. Yeah, there you go.
He looks like he's doing a Benny Hill pose as well, doesn't he?
Again, doesn't he? We showed him last week with his hands in his pockets, like Benny Hill used to do.
Yeah,
both hands in his pockets, looking a bit like that character.
It wouldn't surprise me if he has actually done that deliberately, because and again, this could get a little bit dark, but just in a reference of a lot of the people who remember Benny Hill are now dying out or potentially being killed off. So he could have somewhat confidence that most people who see him do those little kind of things won't realise it's, hang on a minute, Benny Hill used to do all that shit. That's classic Benny Hill, that's his kind of mannerisms and the way he would behave.
Yeah.
For a lot of the younger demographic that they're trying to re-engage into politics, they're trying to recruit people back into the system, basically. They wouldn't realise that, like, he's basically emulating Benny Hill and that archetype of the charming fool. He seems like a fool, but he's nice, he's friendly, he's jovial, The reality is he's a snake. So, of course, he's doing, like the Cobra does, he's doing his dance to hypnotize you. His buffoonery, his show, and the show is meant to hypnotize you. You don't see the blade coming.
Don't see Brexit and the
the unresolved. We're going to have a deal. It's oven ready. We got it ready. It's ready to go in the microwave. Yeah, it's like, yeah, mate, you don't know fuck all about cooking, do you?
He knows about eating Monster Munch and Diet Coke, I think.
He knows how to order things with his expenses card from the government. Now, let me just check my notes because I know a couple of other things to mention just before we sort of move away from the topic of the virus and the vaccines. And it's not exactly like we're moving far away, but I'll put this link in the side chat as well. This is for Dr. Vernon Coleman's latest, well, not his latest book, I don't think, but one of his most recent ones that he put out this year that is about the situation around the alleged illness. But he put up a little video today, thanks to Kendo sharing the link with me. I watched that earlier. He put up a little video, like he does, his old man in a chair kind of thing. But he mentioned at the end of the video that the various booksellers online have now taken down his book. So, like, it's no longer available on Amazon and whatever. You can't get it online anymore. You can't order a copy of it. So instead, he's made it available as a free PDF on his website.
Good. Yeah.
It took a little bit of searching through for me to find it because his little website is very old-fashioned and not very well laid out. But I did eventually find it, and I put the link in the side chat. So if anyone wants it, it's worth getting it, sharing it around if you can, if you've got the opportunity to do that kind of thing. Because it's there available for everyone, especially for the people who like to read. There is a whole lot of information in that. Sorry, I was just scrolling through it, realizing I'm not looking at the screen again. Yeah, there's a whole lot of information in that. So it's another one of those little bits of things that you can offer to people or signpost for people, so that rather than truth bukkake all over them and go, oh, did you know about this and this and this and this and this and this and this? You can just go, oh, well, this guy is a doctor. 40, 50 years worth of experience in the medical industry, in the medical trade. He's a wealth of experience and knowledge. And you go and have a look at what he's saying. Especially for those people that are still stuck in that kind of mindset where they just believe science is real without question. Which science? So you're saying now you're going to pick and choose which science is real, because that guy's got the same qualifications and a hell of a lot more experience and knowledge of life in general than some of the experts that you're quoting at me saying, oh, well, they know what they're talking about because they're an MD, a doctor with a certificate. Yeah, so's he. So if you insist on saying science is real, believe the science, it's like, yeah, I am believing the science, and the science that he's showing to me is different than the science that you're claiming.
When you get the whole picture, it makes more sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When you don't get the whole picture, like we did with the climate as well, they do the same thing. They just give you their version.
I thought it was worth mentioning that this app helps keep an eye on you. See, they're even telling you directly. What is it meant to do? It's nothing to do with an illness. It's to do with turning you into a tracked object, an item in the Internet of Things. This is one of the elements about the vaccine as well. The conspiracy thread that there will be some kind of technology, a nano chip or a tracking chip of some kind in the vaccine. And although, of course, that's a possibility, just like a lot of other possibilities, they don't really need to do that to be able to track and trace us, because the majority of the population are willingly walking around with the same thing in their hand. I've sort of made this point a few times, but just to sort of try and be a bit more clear on it, or to clarify what I'm saying in reference to this, for a long time, for 20 plus years, back into the 90s, I can remember the same thread being talked about, that they want to inject everyone with a microchip, and the microchip will be the way that you trade and the way, it's your passport and everything all in one. And it's sort of like, yeah, okay, that's a possibility. But as the technology developed, they didn't need to inject us with a chip. So now what they've done is they've used that conspiracy idea or that concept from however long ago, and they've turned it into an extreme so that they can ridicule it and use it as a derogatory label to stick on people. And as well, this is the main point, it distracts people from the real danger of the device in their hand, or the device on their shelf, like the little talking pod things that connects you to the internet.
Alexa and all that rubbish.
Because it placates people's fear, who come looking at the question and it's, I've just heard some conspiracy guy saying about they're going to inject everyone with microchips so they can track us and stop us from going to the train station and this and that can't be true, can it? And they go and have a little look online and they find the fact checker sites and the official info sites and whatever. And those official sites all say the concept of injecting people with a microchip is a ridiculous conspiracy theory idea and there's no proof to it whatsoever. So their fear is eased. And they walk away thinking, oh, yeah, of course, yeah, I knew it wouldn't be true that the government would want to track and trace us all the time. No, just get my phone and see what's going on in the world. The fear that it's already been done to them is alleviated and misdirected, because they were fed this concept of, oh no, they're only tracking you if they inject a chip into you. Then you have to be worried. And they haven't injected a chip into you, so you don't need to worry about it, do you? That is the twisting the truth so that they can use it as a lever to push people in the direction they want anyway. Yeah, I bet you there's a vast majority of people out there happily sitting there with their device going, oh, yeah, there's people who think they're going to inject chips in them. They're all crazy conspiracy theorists, isn't they? Yeah. Oh, the phone's just told me I can't go to the shops anymore. Oh, I better not go to the shops and I'll go hide under the shelf.
But they are still pushing that chip as well. I mentioned that the Gadget Show, I think it's called, on Channel 5. They were pushing the chip thing, and actually put it into you, your, just where your thumb and your, in that little gap there. That was going to be, this is where it's all going, and they were promoting it like it was just okay. That's what's going to happen, and that's the way we're going. And all these guys going, yes, and I've just seen this guy, and he's got and really going for it. And I thought, wow, 10 years ago, you were called a conspiracy theorist if you said people were going to be doing that. They were going to be injecting people with a chip, and they're going to be actually, willingly accepting it because the way that they're molding us towards that moment, which they're doing now, and they did it with the mobile phone, like you say. Give you the gadget, the shiny bright thing, get you all hooked.
Normalized.
Yeah.
Because the reality of the technology, those kind of implantable chips have been around for 20 plus years. So the reality that they can do it, and in some places they do actually already do it, was out there. The information was out there, but the stigma that was generated around that cognitively infiltrated concept of, oh, they're going to inject a microchip in you and it's going to be the mark of the beast kind of thing, the ridiculed version of the concept, that's still going strong. They've used it again recently for all of this fucking COVID bullshit situation. There were companies out there who, as part of their employee contract, the employee is required to have an implanted chip. Reality, boom, in the commercial world, done, dusted. It's not a conspiracy theory, it's just a part of reality now. And most of the public have been normalized to the concept through the soft version of it by having these devices. Oh, we knew most of the population wouldn't be happy if we told them we're going to inject electronics into them so we can track them all the time. So instead, we gave them this external version of the same thing.
Google Maps, fantastic, aren't they? Aren't they fantastic? Google Maps knows exactly where you are at all times, and they also tell the government too. So yeah, that's how they do it.
So I was just distracted checking the YouTube stream and the chat room. He's still going. Yeah, cool.
Busy chats tonight. I just had half an eye on it. Hello,
yeah, I was trying to look back again every so often, like I do, just to see what's scrolling past and see who's in the chat. Hello to everyone in the chat at the moment. I'll do a shout out to the chat in a little bit because we're already at the 9:30. 21:28.
Tell you what, it just flies by. It's just me and you waffling, just me. It's whizzes. It's like, whoa, it's so 9:30 already. Wow.
You know what they'll say? It's because we're an echo chamber. Yeah. We're just yes men. We're just nodding dogs. One guy says one thing and the other one just agrees to everything.
Whatever. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. They're just upset because they're not the one involved. This is just a quick graphical explanation. This is kind of the effects of a Bell's palsy, which is a stroke. That's what it is. It's a stroke in the brain that causes an outward physical effect of causing half of the face to drop. Or it'll either go totally relaxed so that there's no shape, or it will go the opposite. It will tighten, and they get like rictus, where the muscles become seized in a certain position and things like that. But this is one of the effects of the vaccine. Just as a caveat to the official narrative, if you've got severe allergies, and by severe, they mean pretty much any allergies. They're not sure exactly how severe the allergy has to be, just an allergy. You might get an anaphylactic effect such that you could end up with Bell's palsy. But you got to get your vaccine, folks, otherwise you'll die. This is the level of craziness we got to, where I mentioned it on Monday or on Wednesday, I can't remember. You know, however many deaths, was it 6 or more deaths during the trial period?
Yeah.
Then there was the severe allergic reactions, including some nurses that had allergic reactions. All these things combined with, it alters your DNA. the mainstream likes to try and play that concept down as if it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
like,
okay.
Don't worry about it. Everything changes your DNA.
Yeah, it just goes in there, attaches itself, then reproduces itself, and it's a totally foreign thing that's gone in there. Yeah,
I'm surprised they haven't tried to say something like, well, asparagus makes your pee smell funny, but you don't worry about that, do you? Again, just the absurdity level of everything. I really wish I'd grabbed a quick screenshot of Handicock's face when he was doing his cry laugh, because that to me is just like, for 2020, that is the epitome of the absurdity that we've reached. Hancock can go on a mainstream, what is supposed to be a news show, a news media presentation, and do a blatantly obvious fake cry. And the public is meant to just swallow that as being the guy who's the official in charge of a national rollout of a medical treatment that is literally required to allow society to continue. In other words, there will be no more life unless you have the jab. You're not allowed to go out and live your day unless you've had the jab. And he's there doing a fake crying.
Yeah, as he receives payment for all those jabs. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Tony, for putting that in. That's the carousel from Logan's Run.
Yeah.
And when they tested positive for coronavirus, it's time for your COVID carousel.
That's brilliant.
So this is what I mean about, keep it simple, but it contains a fair amount of information for people who are maybe able to catch the drift, as it were. Which one was that? Was that from Logan's Run as well? Yeah, it is, isn't it? Or is that Demolition Man, the Joy feelings?
Joy, yeah.
You'll have to remind us in the chat, please. I can't. My memory isn't that great for all the cultural media references that we often throw in. But cultural media. One of the reasons why I like keeping an eye on all that kind of stuff. Taz says Demolition Man. It was. Thank you, Taz. Is partly because entertainment for myself. I quite often will watch a movie or something. I'm not afraid of them, taking control of my brain or something because I watch a movie. So obviously, admit your own biases. I watch some of the stuff for entertainment purposes, but I also watch it for research and observational purposes. I'm interested in the sociology of what they're doing, the psychology, all the manipulation that takes place, the symbology that's used, loads of subjects. Yeah? But watching, having 40 plus years worth now of looking at this kind of stuff, because even when I was a young kid, I was interested in science fiction stuff. That really was where I got started, reading science fiction books and whatever. But looking at this stuff over a lifetime, I will quite happily admit that there is a natural emanation that occurs from people, kind of ethnic, cultural output. Cultural media varies different places around the world. It's got an ethnic basis, as it were. It's like what's culturally relevant to the Japanese is different to over here. So for the Japanese, all that concept of the Godzilla and all that kind of, science fiction, fantasy kind of stuff, it's very particular to the Japanese. You don't see it in other cultures, or it emanates in a different way in other cultures, in other ethnic groups. But you've also got to admit that media that we call cultural media, movies, novels, music, art, anything that is people expressing their ideas and opinions, etc., or making observations on life, fictional observations on life. All of that is heavily manipulated to carry certain politicized messages. I've often mentioned the reality that even 2,000 or more years ago, Plato acknowledged that the use of the theatre was vitally important to the state, because the theatre could carry messages to the mass of the public, the populi, and from there it would influence how your society would go, how it would operate, and how it would be built. So they have to interfere. And in more recent years, I think that has become so overt and so saturated that the majority of what we refer to as media is infiltrated by it in some fashion.
Oh, yeah.
Even if it's in an innocent fashion, as in the writer has absorbed propaganda and it ends up coming out in their writing. They're not doing it deliberately. They're just referencing other elements of society that we're all aware of, but they're doing it in an innocent fashion. They don't comprehend the malicious intentions behind it. I think a good example is movies like Demolition Man. I've talked about that for years. You put aside the silly script between Stallone and what's his face, the bad guy, Wesley Snipes, wasn't it? Yeah, Stallone and Snipes. That's just sort of like the vehicle that carries the whole thing through the movie. You look at the background detail with things like that, and the whole movie is saturated with little background details like that of this is what they think the world should be like. Demolition Man was a little bit of a warning, but you could also say it was a foreshadowing movie. It was preparing the populace for a society that was about to emerge. This came out in the 80s, I think, late 80s.
Yeah, something like that movie, yeah. But in 2020, I mean, think where we are now with the year we've had and all this revealing and all this. People can see a lot more now than they could even, 10, 11 months ago.
Yeah.
Like you said, that sudden download or that sudden realization that, this is what, people have talked about or seen the, the UN agendas and stuff and all this control going on and all these World Health Organizations, these sorts of people, the, what's it called? Davos, them lot as well.
Didn't they move their meeting this year? I think they said somebody mentioned they made a statement saying they were going to move it somewhere.
Yeah, the World Economic Forum, MOB, and them lot all sort of this year. We're seeing all these things emerging and all these, off the back of all this, destroying the, the matrix, the economy and all this stuff and changing behaviors all this year as I've been trying to do, and people can see it all. We're heading towards, I say, the end of the year now. It's like, wow, we're not far off, are we? So next Monday's was the solstice next Monday, and you're again falling on the right day again.
That could be the opportunity to pick that lock. If you think of it as like Jam, you're saying, it feels like we're stuck in a time loop, and that is a lot of what's happening. We're seeing the recycling of history, including, there's the natural occurrences that are happening, like we've been talking about, the recycle or the cycling of those conjunctions, of the planetary conjunctions, etc.
And we had the eclipse today as well. Don't forget, there was an eclipse today. But
also the recycling of the propaganda and the methodology that the state has been reliant on now for hundreds of years.
Yeah,
where they use this process of self-destruction. They turn the handle of their revolution machine. They gradually debase a society. They demoralize it. They disenfranchise it. They strip it apart like a carpetbagger stripping apart a company, taking all the assets and selling them off and all this kind of stuff. That's what they've been doing to our societies for the past few decades. And in that steady process, eventually, that society begins to crumble in on itself because all the resources that it would normally rely on to operate properly are being eroded and taken away. So they know that will push people to a crunch point, and then they generate a buttload of chaos, and in that chaos the revolution begins, and the old world is wiped away, putting it nicely. Yeah, the old world is eradicated, and they build the new version on top, and the new version is just a different stylization of what was here in the first place anyway. The new world order is the old world order with a lick of paint added to it.
Taxation and slavery.
Yeah. Now it would be even more invasive and direct, because that interconnection into the Internet of Things with the hang on, let me just quickly change the banner over, with that attached, that letter, but you've got it a certain number of times. Yeah. And of course there's higher levels of that already developing. Yeah. There's more of those letters getting put in there. But that combination of the Internet of Things with the devices that are constantly tracking and tracing us, in a society where you're required by a legal statute to present those electronic papers whenever required, that is a level of slavery that has never ever been seen in history on the planet. Not when you're talking about the scale and the invasiveness of it. It's happened in small pockets occasionally through history in a paper-based way, but even that paper-based version was not as ingrained into the very foundations of your life as this will be if people carry on with it.
Let it happen.
Yeah, that's the main thing. Like I mentioned earlier, the societies we live in are primarily built by all of us. Not Boris Johnson, not Hancock. Hancock is not out there building the latest housing estate and deciding what style it is and whether there's going to be a shop on site and shit. No, we're all doing that. The bureaucratic level of the society is doing the planning. Those people are just flesh puppets to make the pronouncements, to drive the populace in one direction or the other. It's us lot that actually decide whether we're going to go the direction they're pointing or not.
Yeah. And consciousness is rising.
Yes. So to sort of wrap it up, mention we had the total eclipse today.
Yeah.
Over the southern hemisphere. Let's just turn that off because it'll annoy me with it constantly dragging across the bottom of the screen. And I'll put that one up instead, because that's a major part of the ignorance is strength. And we've got the conjunction coming up next week on the 21st with the Saturn and Jupiter, the two main gods, call them that, in the solar system, other than obviously the ultimate ruler, the sun itself. The sun is the primary driver of climate. And when you think of the psychic climate, the sun is the primary driver of events on the planet. Yeah, the other planets have an influence. They maybe you could say they get to choose the wallpaper and the furniture, but the one that builds the house is the sun itself. So, if that sun was not the way it is now, we would not have all the things here that we have now. That doesn't mean the sun is God. Don't make that mistake. But it certainly means it has the most influence on this planet compared to everything else. Despite what all those fatheads on the telly box like to try and convince you of, then let's see them take on the sun. So, okay, mate, let's see you give your political speeches in the middle of the sun if we fire you at it. Convince the sun that it has to step aside so that you can survive. Maybe that would be a good test for them. And the other thing as well is the Geminids. There's the Geminids meteor shower happening at the moment. I think it started yesterday or the night before. I'm not sure exactly when it started. But that's been going on as well. and Adapt 2030, David Devine, I was trying to remember his name, David Devine mentioned it in his video from today. There were sprites photographed in the upper atmosphere again. Now, I thought it was quite good. It was during the meteor shower. So in the image, you got like the meteor streaks on the photograph as well. And then you got the little, like they're almost like jellyfish in the sky. Yeah, the sprites hanging in the atmosphere in the background. That is an indication of increased electrical charge in the atmosphere. We're talking about the energy rising. All these things are coming together into a convergence, a confluence of energy flow. This could be one of the most significant time periods in the entirety of the history of mankind. I know that sounds grandiose. And often over the years, many people have tried to accuse me of being grandiose and melodramatic and shit like that. It's like, mate, you have taken on the little me that they gave you so totally. You think you're just little you, and oh, you can't be grand. What are you on about? You're grand within your own life, right? Yeah, you're vitally important to the people around you. You're part of their world as well. So you are grand in many different ways. But yeah, people think it's grandiose to say shit like that, but it is a reality. We are going through a time period that has never, as far as we know, never been experienced by mankind before. Never. Not in this combination. We've had some of these planetary conjunctions and solar cycles before, obviously, and of course the precession of the equinoxes and things like that. But the combination of that with what's happening amongst us, in the societies of mankind at the same time, there's never been, like I say, to our knowledge, in the official academic acknowledged record of history, there has never been a singular global unified civilization before. And that is what they've created, the uniformity of corporatized culture, which includes provision for your spiritual self as well as for your financial self and your consumerism self. They've catered for all branches. So this is why they're gradually forming the one world religion by bringing them all under the umbrella of the Vatican. And, they're having this, or even the aliens are accepted now kind of attitude. So when they do their blue beam arrival of the Martians, they can go, oh yeah, come this way, you can get blessed, roll up your sleeve for your sacrament. The holy tech priest will acknowledge you with his injection of nano serum. Do you have the nano truth inside you?
The shit they're going to pull, man. I mean, you might be thinking, that's mad, but it's not. I think that's how desperate they're going to get next year. Because it's going to rise. People see through it all, and it's just they're going to try and pull everything they can to try and maximize the fear. But as we move through this time, like you say, through these conjunctions and these energy shifts, it will take. We're in a sort of, always said this, in a birthing process in a sense, but we're nearly sort of at the end of this year, coming into this new age. Aquarius is coming as well. Moving into that time, which is, again, it's a new, energy coming in. So, think of energy what you like, but those who know and those who are sort of looked into this as well and can see over the spans of time. I think they did link some of that conjunction back to about Babylonia time and all this last time. It kind of any major sort of shifts in the cosmos was happening, how you
combination of things,
you shift from one empire to the next, or one ruling sort of elite to the next sort of thing. And like you say, one sort of unified planet in a good way is good, but not in their eyes, how they're trying to hijack it and send you down that route, where you think, but it's and I think more people are seeing the lies more than ever. I think they're lying and lying and lying, and that's part of it as well, the revealing. You seeing it now in front of your face. You can't deny what has come out of the politician's mouth.
The laugh cry.
Yeah, you can't deny what's come out of their mouths. Boris, all the others, and the fake crying and all the other stuff they'll do before the end of the year as well. That's to come. It's going to be interesting. It's just like I say, it's next Monday as well, where the main that main shift. I don't think we'll see it here in the north. I'm not sure if we'll get a glimpse of that conjunction because it's very, very close.
I'm not sure. I haven't looked.
Yeah, not where I'm not sure if it's where we are. I'm not sure if it's in southern or northern type skies where you get a better look at it.
I can't remember. I know Gary showed a graphic or stellarium picture.
Yeah.
He took a picture from stellarium which showed it. I can't remember now.
Yeah.
That was several weeks ago, I think, when we were first talking about it.
Yeah.
And on that point as well about next week, because it's the 21st of the 12th. Yeah, it's palindrome, 21/12.
21/12/20.
Yeah. I'm still probably more than likely 99.97% likely to do a broadcast of some kind, but I will probably just be chatting in general. Maybe I'll interact more with the chat. I might get the bottle of rum out or something and just have a drink and whatever, and not exactly do a show. And I know I'm not sure how exactly it's going to sort of be done, on what platform or in what format or anything, but Jackie of Jam Noise 72 channel, if you go and check out her channel, we want to try doing a group singing, to get as many people together all singing the same song, The Voice, by Farnham. I can't think of his first name now. Is it Gary Farnham? I can't remember. Anyway, the Voice. It's a classic song from the 80s, if you remember it. Yeah, The Voice. Try to understand it. Yeah, you'll know it as soon as you hear the chorus. Okay. It's right. Very anthemic. Okay. Yeah, it's a really good sing-along song kind of thing. And to make a point about, joining in and tuning into that energy, because that energy is creative. So doing something that is creative, that's accessible to many people, doesn't matter if you think you're a terrible singer, especially not if you're, interacting with people in the virtual space, because, they're not going to hear you. If you're sat at home watching on the screen and you're singing along, it doesn't matter if you're a terrible singer, if you're worried about what people think of you singing. It don't matter. Do it anyway. Yeah, be afraid and do it anyway. It's like, that's sort of the summary of the Bruce Lee quote. Yeah, feel the fear and do it anyway. I think it's another way people have sort of phrased it. So yeah, next week on the 21st, most likely, if we can get something going about 6:30, that's PM GMT, 6:30 PM GMT. Maybe start something up live. Obviously with StreamYard, I can only fit so many people in the room at a time, which is why, like I said, I'm not sure how it's exactly going to get done and on what platform and things like that. But it doesn't necessarily be just a live. It doesn't mean people have to wait until the live thing happens on the night. If you want to do a recording, if you want to record yourself on video or on audio, again, get in touch with Jackie. I think she's after videos of people doing it, so try and put them all together in one go and do like a group chorus line in that kind of way. Yeah? Get as many people as we can all joining in, singing the same song, connecting with that same energy. I think things like that are, and I know this sounds so cliche and sort of cheesy, it's that kind of common connection. I don't want to say the word community or whatever, because the thing is so disparate and spread out, and if anything, don't get hung up on that kind of community thing. It's not so much that you're part of, you've got to join a community or something. No, it's a common connection, a common unity, which was really what that word was originally about, a common unity. These are the simple things that can demonstrate to to anyone near enough, even the slowest person. They may not be, a super genius or whatever, but they get the idea that when people are gathered in groups and they're all having a good sing-along and having a good time, there is that energy that occurs. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that shit, and it's stuff that we've been doing as mankind, as a species, we've been doing throughout our entire history. Our whole society has grown out of that kind of environment of groups, families, tribal groupings coming together in common unity and living. Singing is part of living. I don't think there's any culture on the planet that has ever existed that has existed without music in one form or another. This is a point I've made many times over the years. How many people have you ever met who say they don't like music? Not a particular type, just music, full stop. Something deep within us about the connection to frequencies and vibration and resonance. When we're all resonating on a similar frequency, you get that upswell of energy. I've experienced it many times in concerts and things like that, where you get so into it, it's almost like you lose yourself, as they say. And I know there's other connotations to that we could talk about another time, but yes, please check it out if you're interested. Whether you think you're a terrible singer or not, that's not what it's about. It's not a competition. It's not, going to be on TV or any shit like that. Be on YouTube, of course, but, it's not like you're going to an audition or anything. It's just exuberance for exuberance sake, with the theme of some good lyrics that have a good connection. Talking about good stuff. I ain't really got time now because I've been waffling so much to say hello to everyone. I've done it again. There's so many people I like to, say hello to everyone. And it means now we could do like half an hour of me just calling out names. Maybe we could do that one night. It's like tonight's show is just names from the chat room. Hello to everyone in the chat room. Thank you for joining in. Thank you for giving us your attention for a couple of hours or so. I know there's been lots of good chat going along. I'm just skimming through. I'm just scrolling down. I'm not going to start because otherwise once I start I'll feel that I'll have to say hello to everyone if I do, because like I say, I don't like to say hello to one person and then not say hello to everybody else. That's why, if you've ever noticed, I'm in the habit of, I don't say hello to individuals in a chat room. I just say hello. I'm saying hello to everyone. Even if you don't like me, I don't give a fuck. I'll say hello when I come in the room. I think that's just good manners. Say hello when you arrive. Whether you like the people in the room doesn't matter. You still say hello when you arrive. So thanks, folks, for joining in. As I say, check out Jackie's channel, Jam Noise 72. And we'll see how things develop over the week. I didn't exactly bring you a load of news stories to share. I'm sure you're all quite well aware of all the stuff that's going on. Thanks to Peter for joining in. Thanks to Taz, who was in the chat sharing links as usual. Thanks, Taz. And thanks to Big T, the Dot, for his great memes and graphics that we often share. We'll be back again on Wednesday night for the reality chat on the Reality Chat channel, 8 p.m. GMT. And Steve Tagoose will be on Thursday on the Mystery Show, again at 8 p.m. GMT. And I'll be back for a sing-along and a knees up and whatever next week, being the 21st. And we'll celebrate the real change of the year, because that solstice day is the real change of the year.
Yeah.
So, take it easy, folks. Don't believe all the bullshit. Don't let them scare you. And we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Cookie, and all in the chat. Cheers.
Cat cheese. Click the button.